Back on the Turks, Michael Shore with you on this Tuesday. Cenk Uygur will be back tomorrow. I'll be joined I'll be joining Anna in the next hour, in which we will actually talk very seriously about what's going on in New York and the protests in Wall Street. And I think that there's a lot to cover in that subject matter because of both how few people and how many people are riled up about it, and there are two ways of looking at it. And I think it'll be fun to talk about with Anna and share a little bit of footage of what's going on in New York right now. And we will get to talking about taxes in just a moment. One unbelievable thing that is happening, and this is always exciting when you go into an election year. Wayne LaPierre shows up. Wayne LaPierre is the head of the National Rifle Association. You don't hear very much about him. Gun legislation hasn't been at the forefront of the Obama administration or this Congress. It's going to be very difficult for any kind of restrictive gun laws when you see the House of Representatives, the makeup of the House of Representatives right now. It is not something that is in front of the Supreme Court. So for now, guns are being left alone, yet that is all a conspiracy, according to Wayne LaPierre. He's a crazy man, as far as I'm concerned, and I have very little tolerance for guns. I appreciate that people like to hunt. I don't get it. Doesn't look like fun to me. I shot a bird once when I was like 10 years old. The very first shot I took, and I never had felt worse, and I haven't shot anything since then. So even when people say, I want to protect the rights of hunters, and I don't even want to protect the rights of hunters, but that's just me secretly. I know people like to hunt. I just don't get it. But Wayne LaPierre is really, I've always thought, is off the deep end. And here is Wayne LaPierre talking about, I mean, if you really sort of think that the president has his opponents and you don't know where they come from, listen to the National Rifle Association. This is clip number 5, JR.
The president will give another little talk about how he respects the rights of sportsmen and women, while in private he makes fun of good Americans who, quote, cling to their guns or religion. But in public, the president will remind us he's put off calls from his own party to renew the old Clinton gun ban. He hasn't pushed for new gun control laws. And he'll even say he's looked the other way when Congress passed a couple of minor pro-gun bills by huge majorities. The president will offer the Second Amendment lip service and hit the campaign trail saying he's actually been good for the Second Amendment. But it's a big, fat, stinking lie, just like all the other lies that have come out of this corrupt administration.
Right. So not only is it a lie, the lie he's talking about, it's just like all the other lies. And I love how Wayne LaPierre says the president will say this in private, but does this publicly. How would he know what the president says in private? And, you may say, well, you don't know, Michael, if he's ever sat down with the president. Well, I know that he hasn't sat down with the president because when invited to sit down with the president said, after Gabrielle Giffords, Congresswoman from Arizona, was shot and nearly killed in Tucson earlier this year, it was the president who invited Wayne LaPierre to come to the White House to talk privately amongst other people to see if there's a way to address this with gun owners, et cetera, to speak reasonably about this. Wayne LaPierre didn't go, and he said he didn't go because why should I or the NRA go sit down with a group of people that have spent a lifetime trying to destroy the Second Amendment in the United States? I don't really feel like Barack Obama has spent a lifetime trying to destroy the Second Amendment in the United States. I don't feel ever that when somebody says this is a lie, just like all those other lies, without naming what the other lies are that indicate corruption, I don't know what lie he's talking about here with the president trying to destroy the rights of sportsmen and sportswomen in America. LaPierre continued. This is clip number 6.
It's all part of a massive Obama conspiracy to deceive voters and hide his true intentions to destroy the Second Amendment in our country. I've been leading the fight for NRA, for freedom, for 2 decades now. You know I've never backed down in the national spotlight from telling the truth. So I'm going to give it to you straight here this morning. Before the president was even sworn into office, they met and they hatched a conspiracy of public deception to try to guarantee his reelection in 2012.
You know, I love also that he's that LaPierre comes up with this conspiracy theory. I mean, this guy is nuts. This guy is absolutely crazy. His logic here is that he, the president, has failed to try and meddle with any of the existing gun laws or to try and go back to some of the Clinton bans is merely because he wants to go out onto the campaign trail in a conspiratorial way and say, look, I didn't mess with gun rights and gun laws. I mean, there has to be a certain point where these people realize who their constituents are going to vote for and who they're not going to vote for. Barack Obama is not losing a wink of sleep over appealing to the gun lobby. I think he knows he's not going to get those votes. And I think, what were you going to say, JR?
I guess I hope that Obama would hatch some of these conspiracy theories on the liberal agenda that keeps going on.
No, that's a great point.
As long as he just,
right.
as long as he comes up with these like far-reaching conspiracies to make sure he gets reelected, and just kind of goes along with the flow, just to appease us, just to lull us into sleep, it'd be excellent.
It's true. I mean, I don't know how to quite figure out what the conspiracy would be. But yeah, I mean, what JR is saying is true. It would be nice. Well, it'd be nice if it wasn't a conspiracy. It would be nice if it was out in the open and blatant and you could see all of it and Obama was saying those things. So maybe it's all a conspiracy. Maybe he's so clever that all the good things he promised us that we're going to get are all part of that conspiracy as well, and we're going to see all that happen. Boy, that would be really nice. Speaking, by the way, of transparency, and maybe one of the worst segues ever, it was noted today that the Deficit Commission has been the private government-mandated by law commission that is chaired by Patty Murray, the Democrat, and Jeb Hansarling of Texas, the Republican, has been meeting in private. And, I really believed that this was all about transparency. I believed that trying to solve this deficit problem is about transparency. These 12 people go into a room and they leave, and we have heard nothing about it. And I believe that it's only about 2 months away that we're due some sort of legislation, because a month after that, they're required, mandated by law, to vote for it, and we haven't heard a thing. John Kerry has come out and he said, we're working at it, we're working at it. I'd love to see, this is. It seems like they're avoiding the transparency. John Kerry came out of the Joint Deficit Reduction Committee meeting and said, I don't want to discuss what we discussed. And it does show that all these Republicans, by the way, the 90-some-odd new Republicans that came into office last year, came into office saying that there would be transparency, that they would show sweeping legislation, and they would show how it's made and what's wrong and what's going on and what's right, et cetera. And meanwhile, this Deficit Reduction Commission goes in there, and we don't know a lick of what's going on with them. I think it's pretty surprising, and I'd be hard-pressed. They have had a couple of public hearings, but nothing was really gleaned from those. And the fact that they're not talking at all about this is seemingly totally hypocritical to what their mission is. They're trying to solve this. We need to know how they're going to come up with the $1.2 trillion that they need to take out of our debt, our nation's deficit, and that would be it would be nice just to see what's going on there. Have one of them answer frankly, and they all the rank and file members will say, "We'll go speak to the chairman." The chairman don't say anything. Well, we got a lot done. It's been a very productive day. What kind of productivity? Just tell us one thing that we did. Tell us one thing that we cut, that we lowered, but we haven't heard a thing. Now, let's go to the right wing. We heard yesterday, it was Chris Wallace was talking to David Plouffe, and Ben and I both felt as if David Plouffe lost the day there, and Chris Wallace was able to get a message across on Fox News about the disproportionately high taxes that rich Americans are forced to pay. And David Plouffe sort of foundered in that interview. He didn't really come up with a concise answer. And it's frustrating because the way that the rich are portrayed in the media as if they're paying the lion's share of our taxes. Well, In fact, they pay a lot of money, but it's not about dollars, it's about percentages. And it's about the amount of money they have and the loopholes that they're able to jump through to avoid paying taxes. And it's also about the types of taxes we pay in America, the difference between income tax and payroll tax, the difference between capital gains taxes and actual taxes. And so I think what we, Fox put up this chart called the Fair Share chart, which talked about, it showed that the top 1% of income earners paid 38.02% in federal personal income taxes. Individual income taxes made up only 44% of federal revenues in 2009. So you can see that chart right there, 44%. Payroll taxes and other taxes, whether they be corporate taxes or excise taxes, made up the rest, 42% in payroll taxes. So the overall portion of income lost, well, let me just explain this to you. So let me read this. That same year, payroll taxes made up 42% of federal revenue. In 2006, 86% of households with wage earners had higher payroll taxes than income taxes. I'm here to simplify it for you, and I don't feel as if I just did. But what you're looking at is the fact that only 44% of taxes, where it was disproportionately weighted to wealthy Americans, were paid with income taxes. The rest were paid with payroll taxes, which are, in a way, they are regressive taxes, and I'll explain that in a moment. Payroll taxes apply a flat percentage rate to an individual's income under $106,000 and change, which makes the taxes very regressive. The overall portion of income lost to the tax goes down as your income goes up. So 2/5 of the federal government's revenue, 2/5 comes from a progressive income tax, which fall harder on wealthier Americans. But another 2/3, now that we went from 2/5 to 2/3, comes from payroll taxes, which fall harder on poor and working class Americans. And all of these taxes, when you add state taxes, which are also regressive, you're talking about proportionality here. So yes, rich and wealthy Americans are paying more in taxes. They're paying more dollars in taxes, but they also have ways of getting out of them. They have ways of paying less than 15% if they are making money off of hedge funds or capital gains. They have ways, and they'll say to you, oh, but that's double tax because our income was taxed, but the income's not always taxed if you put it right into investment. So it's a little bit different. And even if it is taxed when it's put into investment, the money that it's making in those hedge funds is money, first of all, that other Americans don't have access to, because in order to get into some of these hedge funds, you have to invest a minimum of $5 million, sometimes $10 million, sometimes $1 million. It doesn't matter what the minimum is. They're closed off to people of small income, unless they get into a mutual fund or they do something more sophisticated. But to avoid paying taxes in America is much easier if you're a wealthy American. So the idea that only wealthy Americans are paying high levels of tax in America is ludicrous. And it even becomes more evident once you go to state and local taxes. The right's picture of the overtaxed rich deteriorates even further under that scenario. State and local taxes are highly regressive. In 2007, the lowest 20% of earners in America, the lowest 20% of earners lost 11% of income to state and local taxes, while the top 1% lost just over 5%. So the proportionality of the way we are taxed in America and the impact of that taxation on poor Americans cannot be overstated. I mean, the fact that people can go on Fox News and say, well, the rich are paying so much, they're paying so much in personal income taxes, and by the way, they're paying far less now, excuse me, even proportionally, than they did when Ronald Reagan was president. Excuse me, I have to take a drink here because I'm getting angry. When Ronald Reagan was president and you saw a 40% tax rate, high 39s, excuse me, dying on the vine here, getting angry about this. You didn't see these same people complaining. But right now, as it turns out that the president is trying and the Congress is trying and you have people running for office that are trying to restructure the tax rate and change the fact that 15% of hedge fund taxes are, the 15% of capital gains taxes are paid for people who invest in hedge funds. This is true. This is real. And so to say on television, and in fairness, Chris Wallace made the distinction that it was, in fact, income taxes, but to say on television that the rich are paying more in taxes and they're facing a higher burden and should be taxed less is basically unfair. It is wrong. It should be illegal. I mean, this is the kind of thing that Roger Ailes should go on Fox and say, we can't broadcast this. You have statistics and charts going up on Fox News daily that are saying that the rich are unfairly taxed in America. It simply isn't true. And the last bit about this that's most interesting is the effective tax rate. And I don't know if do we have a chart on that, Jesus? I'm not sure if we do. The total effective federal tax rate on the richest Americans fell 6 percentage points, and now that goes back from 2006. So from 1979 to 2006, the rich started paying 6% less than they were paying percentage-wise, including capital gains in 1979. From 1979 to 2006, the rich paid 6% less in tax. But over the same time period, the share of all income in the nation going to the top 1% increased from 9.96% to 22.82%. So what you're seeing here is that the taxation of the rich has gone down, but the amount of money they made has gone up. So I guess we'd assume that the same thing happened to the middle and lower class of Americans in that same time period. However, you're wrong if you think that. During the same time period, the top 1% average income increased more than 250%, while the average income from the bottom 90% increased less than 75%. So plus 250 to plus 75. Meanwhile, the top 10% saw their total federal tax rate fall over 2 percentage points, while their share of the income rose 15 percentage points. If the taxes that required the rich to keep pace with the gains they've enjoyed in the American economy, there would be a totally different level of taxation in America. And this is what Fox News, this is what conservatives, this is what people who are Republican or are running for president want you to see. It's wrong, and it is going to create a level of poverty in this country that has never been seen if it continues this way. The division between rich and poor in America, because of the way we are taxed and because of the ways out of paying those taxes, has never been greater, and it's only going to get worse unless they're able to rein this in. And if you let Republicans win the presidential election and you let them win Congress all the time, this is what they're going to continue to do. They're done protecting poor Americans. I'm Michael Shore. Sorry for the coughing. Back with Anna in just a little bit in a glass of water. Cenk will be back tomorrow. See you then.
Welcome back to TYT. Anna Kasparian, Ben Mankiewicz, and Michael Shore. Rick Strum just ran into the studio and gave us an update on a sports story that I actually didn't know about, but I'm interested in it, so I want to do it now.
Well, take us, what happened in the first part of the story?
Wayne Simmons is a player for the Philadelphia Flyers now, is formerly of the Los Angeles Kings, a black player in the National Hockey League. It was I almost did intentionally, one of my favorite things is when you see somebody who's black and like the overly political correct thing, like when you're in Italy and you see a black person, you say, well, look at that African American. They're not. They're from Italy.
Right.
So Wayne Simmons is actually from Canada. So he's an African Canadian. And
I believe it's Canadian American.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah, same thing. Anyway, Wayne Simmons was last week in an exhibition game, the preseason games in hockey, was skating down doing a penalty shot, which is just the player on the goalie. It's a rare thing in hockey. It's a one-on-one shot. And some fan in the crowd in London, Ontario, threw a banana peel in front of him, which sent people aghast. And he was very cool about it. He said, "Listen, I grew up playing hockey. I'm black, and any black person in the world, any Canadian American, would know that you face these things, and it's unfortunate, but it happens." Cut to this week, and though I haven't seen this footage or heard anything about it except for Rick Strum from the sports department, who just came running in, said
it was a Flyers Rangers preseason game, a heated one. There was fighting.
Mm-hmm.
This is a rivalry.
In a hockey game?
Yeah, I know. And it's a big rivalry. Big
rivalry. And exhibition games, preseason games, are always marked by fighting, and then the same way that playoff games have none. But they got into a fight, and apparently Sean Avery. Wayne Simmons called Sean Avery a faggot, I guess.
That's what we're inferring. It's only because no one will say it,
right?
Because you have to figure. But homophobic slur.
as Rick Strom said,
Right.
he was less specific than we were, and very euphemistic. So what happened was that it brings up the issue here. That Wayne Simmons called Sean Avery a faggot. Sean Avery, who made his public mark on politics and came out and supported gay marriage in New York this year, the gay marriage amendment in New York this year, as a public figure in New York, a professional athlete. Rare that you see that. As Ben mentioned before, just a handful of them came out to support those issues, and so he was called that. And Sean Avery said, Ben, what did he say?
Sean Avery said that, first of all, he reported that this was what was said to him, and the league was said to be on it and investigating it. But Avery said something interesting because he pointed out that, hey, look, man, 10 years ago, because obviously this thing gets said, I think, in the NHL pretty much every game. And he was saying it might have been a big deal, it might have been no big deal 10 years ago, but it matters now, pointing out that something needs to be done. And he wasn't saying, like, throw Wayne Simmons out of the league. He was just pointing out that this got said. And Simmons said, essentially, hey, didn't deny it. He said, hey, look, I said some things I probably shouldn't have during the fight. He said some things he probably shouldn't have during the fight, although not inferring that Sean Avery said anything racist, just that they were insulting each other.
Yeah, and Sean Avery is one of the big insulters of hockey. It should be noted that he is one of the people that has gotten in trouble, suspended repeatedly, actually, for saying things that he should not say.
But interesting that Wayne Simmons, moments after this, gets caught up in this, and Avery saying, I think, it's a totally legitimate thing, which is that, we probably let that go 10 years ago, but we can't let it go anymore.
Yeah. Would you say that the same is true of the rap industry? Because, we recently did a story, I don't remember who called who that word, right? But, rappers will call one another that, and then all of a sudden it becomes a huge media story. And before, I feel like it was almost deemed acceptable, and it was just not a big deal. But now you see more and more people getting criticized and put on blast for that. So.
Don't do it.
Yeah, just don't say that word.
Don't say it. It's because you mean something hostile with it, and and then the word will get used by gay people only, and then it's fine. And
unless you're talking about a bundle of sticks.
Unless you're talking about a bundle of okay.
All right, now the story I promised you guys. The Pew Research Center.
It's terrible. We can't say it. It's terrible.
If you say it in that context, it sounds comical.
I know, but I got scared.
A bundle of sticks.
I know.
What's it called?
A grouping of sticks. Faggots!
Oh, Jesus. That's uncomfortable.
All right. The Pew Research Center and the Knight Foundation say that word of mouth is a top news source for most people who want to get local news coverage, which is crazy. Instead of going to the radio or newspapers, they rather get the news from their friend. Secondhand news, they're totally fine with that. Of course, local news on television comes in at number 1, but word of mouth comes in at number 2, which I think is disastrous.
Yeah, no one should watch local news to get local news. I think everyone should watch local news because it's fun.
Right. Yeah. Well, it brings up an interesting argument too. I mean, or an interesting discussion, not an argument. Is what is a website, is a blog any more responsible than word of mouth? Not necessarily. If you read a blog, but the point is, read the newspaper. They've checked their facts. They've gone, the extra mile to print a story. They print a retraction more often than not when they make a mistake. Yes, their editorial pages are slanted, but you're getting news and you're getting a story, and then you can infer from that what you want. I think, to say that word of mouth, I don't see word of mouth as being any different than an unchecked story on the internet.
No, I agree with you. Yeah. That's why this is such a disastrous story. And 69% of the respondents in the survey said that if newspapers were to disappear off the face of the planet, it wouldn't affect their lives whatsoever.
But they don't understand that the information that they get off the internet that they rely on came from a newspaper.
Somewhere down the line,
it came from a newspaper, or at least responsible reporting. The problem is that when you say blogs, and you can't be dismissive of all blogs, because there are some incredibly smart, sophisticated, responsible blogs that are involved in fact-checking and going through and weeding through information. And then there are, people who just write things with no more sort of veracity and fact-checking than word of mouth.
Right. But look, here's the thing. I think that this is a larger problem than we're even giving credit right now. Because, we have this whole issue with our democracy right now where people are not intelligent enough to make the right choices when they're voting, right? They're not informed enough. The mainstream media isn't doing justice. The local news is a joke. People don't even read newspapers anymore. As I mentioned, 69% of respondents in that particular study said that if we got rid of newspapers, it wouldn't affect them whatsoever. They wouldn't even care, right? So a guy by the name of LZ Ganderson, he is a journalist. He's arguing that, look, the reason why everything is so horrible in the political spectrum right now is because voters are so uninformed, and they're stupid, and they're lazy. And he's very harsh in this editorial that he wrote for CNN.com. And I think he has a point. You know, I think he has a point. I think that people aren't politically active enough, people aren't informed enough, and people don't really look to sources that are reliable for their information.
That's all true, and it's a giant sort of shared responsibility among us, people, for not sort of seeking out and getting the information.
Actually, I heard that it wasn't true.
Oh, all right. Well, all right. I trust Michael.
Yep.
Never mind. Forget what I was about to say.
Well, he's my, he's a friend. He's someone I know.
Yeah. I don't remember who I heard this
him.
from. Pretty sure Barack Obama's gay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard that too.
Yeah.
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 All right, Reddit.com. Reddit.com shut down a page because it was used to post racist opinions. And they didn't shut it down because it was posting racist opinions. They shut it down because there was so much traffic on it that the page literally could not keep up. Okay.
Right. Okay.
But a lot of that traffic is, if you had told me that there was this racist page on Reddit.com, I would go look at it. And so a lot of people are going there just to see.
Right, exactly. But it got like tens of thousands of postings within a few hours. It was, I don't have the specific number in front of me.
So they're claiming they didn't shut it down because it was racist. They shut it down because it was racist and everybody went there. So they shut it down because it was too popular?
No, they didn't shut it down because they wanted to. The server crashed.
Right.
Right. So that particular web page was unavailable because so many people were flooding to that particular web page.
Right. I got it. So it like blew up.
So it blew up, exactly. Something that happens on TYT almost every single day. But but anyway, so Reddit responded to it. They said too much traffic. We're trying to get it back up. Yada yada yada.
We're working hard to get your racist page back up and running.
Reddit sounds so shady, especially considering the story we did yesterday about the 14-year-olds in bikinis and jailbait. That's the webpage.
Right, where they were posting pictures that weren't necessarily pornographic of girls as young as 13, 14 years old, but like with their friends in bikinis, but they were sort of presented because of the nature of the page in a sort of sexualized way.
Yeah.
What is Reddit? What the hell do they do for a living? What's their deal?
Okay.
Help a brother out.
I haven't been on Reddit in a really long time, but the last time I was on it, it was just a place that you go. It's almost like a news feed, right? Okay. So I would go there and people would post interesting articles, and then you can either vote up or down on the article, and depending on how many up votes it gets, it'll be higher up on the news feed, right? So I guess...
It's like a news feeder, sort of, in a sense.
Absolutely, yeah. And I guess now they've updated to include like certain sections. So there's the jailbait section, there's the racist comment section.
Right, well, they were screaming to have that there. I mean, it sounds like I've never been to. Yesterday I'd heard of Reddit, but yesterday was the first time I'd kind of engaged with Reddit when we did that story. Right. It doesn't seem like it has. I mean, that idea, their sort of basic idea, it sounds pretty good, but the none of this sounds particularly.
It sounds don't have a racist comment section. Don't have a jailbait section.
And some of these comments are terrible. I don't think we should read them, but they're just terrible.
I think we should read them.
Oh no, I love racist comments. By the way, you can't. The great.
All right, so I'll read one.
They're not all racist. Some of them are just plain ignorant.
We'll score it on a scale of how racist.
Okay. Half the black people in my area are lazy complainers.
What area is he from?
Well, it could be any area, Ben. It's especially annoying to have them complain about Mexicans who work their asses off and get no aid while the black people get welfare, food stamps, and free housing. So, not racist. How did this get in there? He's saying nice things about Mexicans.
Yeah, all of a sudden, look at this, the rivalry.
Well,
there we go.
This should have been in the jailbait area. And they also keep popping up babies. Note, this is for my area, where this is common practice. I have no idea how it is in other places. Most women who claim to want equal rights are full of shit, saying they can have the same jobs, yet roll their eyes at stay-at-home dads, say that it's unfair for guys to hit girls, etc.
Well, at least there's a logical train and a flow of information there that it's well thought out, that comment. You can't read 4 comments on YouTube on a random YouTube video without it being anti-Semitic.
Anti-Semitic, misogynistic. Don't look at the YouTube comments. The YouTube comments like scare the hell out of me.
No, it's horrible.
They make me fear for my life.
I don't read any comments. I used to read comments on. I don't read the YouTube comments. I don't read YouTube comments.
You definitely should not read the YouTube
I don't read YouTube comments, but I read. No, I read. I'm a 49ers fan. So I used to read, and now I get mad at the 49ers comments. Well, I don't even read the comments on their blog post pages because people are idiots.
The worst part about the comment section isn't what they say about you. It's that family members and friends, if you send them a video, they're going to read the comments. Like, there's nothing that can stop them. And then the worst thing, the most annoying thing to me is when they bring those comments up to me. Like when some of my friends will be like, oh, I read the comment section on that video.
Yeah.
And you know that it's nothing but negative crap. Like, oh, Anna's tits are massive. Or, just stuff that's really degrading and horrible, right?
Well, those are things your family knows. I mean,
what's the...
Whatever. Huh.
Oh, that was the negative part.
No.
Totally, I'm sorry. I got confused.
But there are some negative things in there, too.
But why do you read them? Like, honestly,
I don't read them. I'm
you
saying
know-
family members,
Right.
or friends, and
you
then
don't
they
read
bring it
them.
up. Like they'll bring it up during a lovely dinner, and you're having like a nice glass of wine, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, Anna, I read that comment about how you have a bird brain.
My first experience with comments was as a friend of Ben's, reading. He got a job on Turner Classic Movies, and at the very beginning he started and he was new, and they had a host who'd been there forever and ever, and so all these people who were comfortable with what they were watching at the very beginning were saying terrible things about Ben. And I would get so enraged over this, so angry over it. And I sort of swore them off till then because everybody's anonymous. It wasn't like I am Jim Stevenson from Palomar, Pennsylvania, and my phone number is this, and I think Ben is terrible. It was, I'm hate Ben at hate Ben, whatever it was.
I'm Bicycle Rider 92.
No, but it enraged me so much, and then it enrages me on behalf of the 49ers. So I'm not going to read it about me, certainly, because I can only imagine. And
it's just, I still find it odd, and I find it odd sometimes in prison gangs too, where there's like these big rivalries in prison between, you got the Mexican gangs and the white Aryan Brotherhood, and you got the black gangs in prison, and there's probably Asian gangs in prison, and everything you could. But when like the prison gangs will air their grievances, and they will include Jews. Right. Like you're trying to stay alive, and you got these horrible feuds with these people who are just like you, have a great deal in common with these. You're all in prison together. You have a lot to talk about. But the Jews, the anti-Semitism comes everywhere. And on YouTube, it's just a nice video. Like this video, they'll be like, yeah, I liked the girl with the big tits were great, but what was with the two asshole Jews on either side of her with their hooked noses?
And what about, have you listened, like Howard Stern? Howard Stern will send people, he did this a couple of weeks ago, he sent people up, two of his correspondents, to Harlem or another part of New York City, and they'll say, who do you think caused Hurricane Irene? The Jews. It's great. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, we still, in many ways, we still win as far as just sort of the dismissiveness.
Right.
Dismissiveness of like...
No, there's something wrong with us.
Right. But we get away with it because we're white.
Right, yeah.
So.
And we control the banks. So.
Yeah, and the entertainment industry.
Right.
Practically everything.
Practically everything.
All right, let's take another quick break. When we come back, Morgan Freeman has some comments about the Tea Party being racist. We'll show you that video and more.